Vinay Khai Tulside Vyai Priyai Hai Kesavashacha Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Vrinai Hai Tulside Vyai Priyai Hai Kesavashacha Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Jai Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani So today is a very special day on the Vaishnav calendar for several different reasons. One reason is it's the appearance day of Syamananda, it's the appearance day of Vamshivadana Thakur, it's the Balaramas Rasa Dance, and it's Krishna's Spring Rasa Dance. And it's also, for those of you who don't know, it is the appearance day of Radha Kund. And so that's a little controversial because people think Radha Kund appeared in Bahulastami and Kartik. But Srila Jiva Goswami, in his commentary on the Bhagavatam, gives a time frame of all of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And he says specifically it occurred, the Rasa dance occurred on the Chaitra Purnima. So that's Jiva Goswami. Now of course there's local legends and things like that, but we go along with our acharyas. So what occurred on the Bahulastami? That was Lord Chaitanya finding Radha Kund. So that's really important to understand the difference. So in any case, tonight I'm going to speak about the appearance of Radha Kund, and this morning we're going to speak about those great personalities on Balarams Rasa Dance. So let me just tune the guitar for a second. Last night was a really late program. Okay. Padikacharya, also Teta, Sadashi, Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya. Charanada Bhaktivedanta, Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Kijai. ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Kijai, Nandakoti, Vaishnava Vrinda Kijai. Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur Kijai, Prem Se, Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shidwaita Garadha, Shivasati Gaur, Bhakta Vrinda Kijai, Shri Radha Krishna, Gopi Gopinath, Sayam Kunda, Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan Kijai, Vrindavanam Kijai, Maturanam Kijai, Jagadasami Kijai, Yamunamai Kijai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Kijai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai, Gaur Premananda Hari. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Budale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravati Pacharni Nipasesa Sundavati, Paschata Deshatari, Om Ganati Mranda Shagananjana Shivaya, Chakshura Meditam Nira Tasmai Shivaya Maha. So, as I mentioned, today is a very special day. Someone sent me a message here. It's Hanuman. It's not Hanuman Jayanti. Yesterday was Hanuman Jayanti. So, anyway, so today is a very special day. It's Balaramas Rasa Dance, special Rasa Dance. Krishna's spring Rasa Dance. Of course, it's spring in the northern hemisphere. And it's the appearance day of Vamshi Vedanta Thakur and Syamananda Goswami. So we're going to speak briefly about a few of those topics. First of all, we're going to talk about Balaramas Rasa Dance. So as we all know, Krishna left Vrindavan at a very young age. Some acharyas say 12, other acharyas say 16. But anyway, he left Vrindavan, and he left all the residents of Vrindavan very much bereft of his association, lamenting. And they were suffering tremendously. Can you imagine how cruel Krishna is? You see similar pastimes with Lord Ram. Lord Ram sent Sita Devi away. Very cruel. God is very cruel, isn't he? And you see with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what did he do? Does anyone know?
He left his wife.
Sannyas. Yeah, took sannyas when his wife was 16 years of age. Ooh. So it appears that the Lord is very cruel. But actually, he's not cruel because of the spiritual platform. When one experiences the mood of vipralamba, intense separation, one is actually connected. Yeah, there's actually more connection than when you're meeting. In the material world, when you meet or you're disconnected, you're always disconnected. Because two people, they're meeting, but they have different ideas. Like, for example, oh my God, I shouldn't use this example. You get very upset with me occasionally. So let's say one has a pet, a dog. So one is thinking, dog really loves me. And the dog is thinking, where's the food? I just want someone to play with. I just want someone to play with, And the dog doesn't think, boy, I love that guy. The dog is thinking he feeds me, so I have to act nicely with him. And a cat, for example, if you were to suddenly shrink yourself to the size of a mouse, your cat that you love would eat you. Isn't that true? So you were thinking love. So anyway, but in the spiritual platform, Haribol, good to see you again. So in the spiritual platform, it's actually love, and whether there's connection or disconnection, or in other words, separation or meeting, you're always with your beloved, who's Krishna. And Krishna is always with Radharani, and Lord Chaitanya is always with his wife Vishnu Priya, and basically Ram is always with Sita. I mean, like you see when Hanuman opened his heart, it was Ram and Sita, it wasn't just Ram there. So we should not look at these different pastimes. Haribol. So we should look at these different pastimes from a material perspective. So anyway, so getting back to the point, Krishna left Vrindavan, and the residents of Vrindavan would be waiting for him to come back. And he had promised them he was coming back, but he decided not to come back. And the reason he decided not to come back was because they would experience more separation or more anxiety had he come back, because they were going to be waiting for him to leave again. Once you've been traumatized, it's called PTSD. You understand what I'm talking about? Then the same thing happens again. It really just wakes up all this trauma. So he didn't want to traumatize the residents of Vrindavan. So he had another plan to send the residents of Vrindavan some messages. And of course, we all know about the story of Uddhava going to Vrindavan to send the messages, and there's the song of the bumblebee there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But in this particular case, he decided to send Balaram. So Balaram was also missing all of his friends in Vrindavan, and he wanted to go too. So he took Krishna's permission, and he went to Vrindavan. And so immediately when he went to Vrindavan, of course he went to Nanda and Yashoda, and he actually sat on Yashoda Mai's lap. And Yashoda Mai was crying, and he was asking how his relatives were doing. And the gopis asked something very interesting of Balaram. He said, how is Krishna doing with all those city women? There's some transcendental envy because, sophisticated ladies in the city. His wives were rather sophisticated because Krishna's wives were Kshatriya ladies, generally. Yeah, they were all Kshatriya ladies, actually. And so really sophisticated. Whereas the cowherd girls, they were just village girls, Vaishyas. And so relatively unsophisticated. So they were thinking, we cannot have him back because basically he's with all these really high-class ladies. And he asked, does he remember us at all? Does he remember any of the service we rendered for him? And then they asked, this is all from the Bhagavatam. I'm making reference to that. They say, we gave up everything for him, and he abandoned us. So they have this really anger towards Krishna too. So this anger is also a symptom of love. Like we find, there's a description that Rupa Goswami gives in the Nectar of Devotion about how we all have, or everyone has, one of 5 different rasas. And in addition, there's 7 indirect rasas. 7 such as humor, ghastliness, but one of them is anger. So here they're exhibiting their anger towards Krishna, but it's the anger of love, or man. And this is one statement they make. How can the city women believe him? It must be, in other words, he's not trustworthy. Why are they, who are much more sophisticated than us, believing this rascal? And they said, it must be his smile which awakens lust. And he's tricking us. Krishna's tricking us by his smile. And they say, let's talk about something else. Forget about Krishna. They're trying to forget, but they can't forget about Krishna. And Balaram gives them a confidential message from Krishna. And it's interesting that Balaram is also called Sankarshan. Sankarshan means he who attracts the mind. Another meaning is he who attracts the mind towards Krishna, which is really interesting. And he actually told the stories about Krishna to the gopis and began to preach to them. He preached to them in 3 different ways. Transcendental knowledge, which didn't go very far. Transcendental knowledge, you're not the body. Someone's lamenting, where is Krishna? Don't you understand you're not the body? In the future you'll go back to Godhead. Okay, Balaram. But then at one point he was conciliatory. That means empathic. He said, I understand basically your separation from Krishna. Okay. And they felt a little better about that. And then in the third way he talked about, Krishna's very powerful anyway, he can be with you. And that didn't help them either. So then, Balaram began, this is the most interesting part of this, Balaram's Rasa Yatra. He began to have his own Rasa dance. Now, Balaram has his own gopis. He doesn't dance with Krishna's gopis, try to understand that. And they were different, and he began to dance by the Yamuna in this place called Ramghat. And any of you been to, anyone's been there? Ramghat in Braj?
Yes.
You've been there. Okay. So they began to dance, and he got drunk. So even in the spiritual world, people drink and get intoxicated. Everything that's here in this world is there in its original, pure state. So, whether there's different types of loving exchanges, conjugal love, or intoxication. But here, those things are not so desirable. Isn't it? Intoxication, someone gets drunk, it's horrible. So, like I told the devotees, I was doing a lot of preaching at the university, and on the weekends I would wake up early and sometimes take a little walk, and there'd be people strewn all over the sidewalks, just lying there. Even when I went to the university many years ago, in the dormitory, it's Sunday morning, everybody would be in the halls, their tongue hanging out. Very abominable. But Balaram's intoxication is not abominable. So he was drinking this Varuni. Varuni beverage was sent by Varuna, the god of the water, and it flowed, actually, this Varuna beverage. It came from the trees too. And he and all the girls got drunk. Actually, Krishna, there's some instances of Krishna getting drunk when Krishna was in Vrindavan too. Not in Dwarka. Dwarka, Krishna never got drunk. He behaved himself. But in Vrindavan, there's some, they made honey wine, and they were so drunk, Krishna and the gopis, don't imitate this, but anyway, they were so drunk that when they poured the honey wine, the glass was upside down. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, sometimes wine glasses, they look like, you understand, it looks like the top is the bottom is the top. And actually, a similar thing happened with a glass, not with wine, to Srila Prabhupada. One time a devotee was serving Srila Prabhupada, and there's this wine glass for water. Prabhupada was using it for water. And it was upside down, and the devotee poured the water. And it got all over Prabhupada's desk. So anyway, so Krishna and the gopis, they would also get intoxicated and enjoy different dances like that. So they were like Gandharvas. Balaram and his gopis were like Gandharvas. He sang, they sang, and it's described in Bhagavatam, he enjoyed like a male elephant with a she-elephant, like Airavata, Indra's elephant. It's described his eyes rolled. I don't know if you've ever seen a drunk person. Their eyes roll like that. And so he wanted to go bathing in the Yamuna. And so he said, Yamuna, you better come here. And she said, no, you're drunk. I don't have to listen. You may be God, but you're drunk. And he got so angry that he dragged the Jamuna to him with the end of his plow. And I said to her, oh, sinful one. And eventually she apologized. And then Balaram entered the Yamuna with the gopis and his own consort, his own lodgemate. And he was given blue garments. And he enjoyed, and it was like many, many nights passed as one night. And this way Balaram enjoyed his Rasa dance. So that's what happened on this particular day. So that's Balaram. Balaram's Rasa dance. And next we're going to talk about Syamananda. He's a very interesting personality. So, actually, just let me mention a little bit about Vamshi Vanan, whose appearance day it is today. He's considered to be, he's an associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, considered to be an incarnation of Krishna's flute. And he was Sachimata's servant. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, he served Sachimata and Vishnu Priya. He was also married and had his descendants and everything like that. The very, very important personality in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Now, Syamananda, we're going to speak more about Syamananda. Syamananda is the one of the three main devotees who were the second generation disciples, descendants from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the first generation, of course, they were the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, like Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Second generation is Syamananda, Narottama Das Thakur, and Srinivas Acharya. And they're the ones who actually started book distribution and preaching all over India. And they really expanded things dynamically. So here's the story of Syamananda. Syamananda was first called Dukhi when he was born, because his parents had other children who died before him. He was actually the only one who survived. And he had all the signs of a Mahapurush. Signs of a Mahapurush mean that you have eyes like lotus petals, and like, not exactly Chinese, but, but eyes like lotus petals. And I've seen that with certain people. I mean, I can't see with anyone here. You all have round eyes like marbles. But it's considered a sign of a Mahapurush, or the arms would reach to the knees, not when one's sitting, but when one is standing. Can you imagine that? I don't think anyone here has that, those proportions of the body. So one could see, even by the proportion of the body, that he was a Nityasiddha devotee. So he was asked one time by his father, "Who's your spiritual master?" And he said, "My spiritual master is Hriday Chaitanya." Now there's an interesting story about Hriday Chaitanya. Like Hriday Chaitanya's spiritual master is Gauridas Pandit. So Gauridas Pandit is Subal in Krishna's pastimes. So the interesting story about Syamananda's spiritual master is as follows: that Hriday Chaitanya, he was actually called Hriday Nanda before, and that means blissful heart. One who has Ananda Hridaya, blissful heart. So what happened is that he was serving his spiritual master, Gauridas Pandit, and taking care of these very special deities of Gaurnitai that Gauridas Pandit had. These deities were actually carved as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu posed for the carving, because Gauridas Pandit, who was an associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, would not let Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda go. He said, "You have to stay here." And Lord Chaitanya said, "Okay, I can't stay here forever, so you can make some deities of me." So there's Gaurnitai deities, very, very beautiful Gaurnitai deities. Ambika Kalna is where they are right now. So then Gauridas Pandit said to his disciple Hridayananda at that time, "Please take care of these deities, I have to go somewhere." Then it came time for Gaur Purnima, the celebration of the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Hridayananda decided to send invitations out and have a festival, even though his guru wasn't there. So his guru gets back and he says, "Why did you do this without my permission? You rascal. You shouldn't do anything without my permission." Heavy guru. Be interesting to do that with disciples. Don't. Because actually the training for brahmacharis was like that you're not supposed to eat until your guru calls you to eat. Otherwise you fast. There's many stories in the Mahabharata about the training the brahmachari gets from the spiritual master. I'll just tell one story. And once upon a time, this is not a Gauridas Pandit or a Syamananda story, but it just tells about the training that you have to be a brahmachari. So once upon a time, there was a guru, and his disciple was horizontally challenged. It's politically correct language. Means he is a little bit too much weight. You got to be careful nowadays. You don't want to shame anybody, right?
People are sensitive.
People are sensitive. You said horizontally, vertically challenged, mentally challenged, devotionally challenged. You can't say someone's invited. You just say you're challenged. So anyway, his disciple. He wanted his disciple to lose some weight. So he sends his disciples out to take care of the cows. And what happens is his disciple comes back and he's gaining weight. And he says, what you doing? He said, the disciple says, well, I'm out there taking care of the cows. I'm begging, I'm collecting a lot of nice food and eating. He says, no, you have to offer everything to your guru before you eat. Okay. And so goes out again, comes back, and still gaining some weight. And the guru says, what are you doing now? He says, I'm offering everything I begged the first time to you. The second time is for me. This story from the Mahabharata, actually an interesting story. And then it says, no, every time you should offer to me. So then he goes out. But then the same thing's happening. He keeps gaining more and more weight. And the guru says, what are you doing now? He says, I'm drinking the milk. The guru said, no, the milk is meant for the calves. So he goes out again, and he's still gaining weight. And the guru says, what are you eating? He said, well, there's froth when the calves are actually eating from their mother. There's the froth coming, so I just... every time the calf is there, he's putting his mouth in right next to the calf. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Take a picture of that one. Put it on Facebook. So the guru says, no, you cannot put anything in your mouth without my permission. So the disciple goes out. The poor guy, he's out there. He doesn't know what to do, and everything he looks at, when you're really hungry, everything you look at is potential food. So he sees a leaf on a tree, and he just throws it in his mouth, and he gets blind. And he falls in a ditch. So the guru's wondering, what happened to my disciple? Did he bloop or what? So he sends his other disciples to find the disciple. The disciple's really trained up nicely. This is the training. Brahmachari, Guru Kuleva, Sandanta Garohitam. So then he finds him in a ditch, and he doesn't take his disciple out of the ditch. But he tests the disciple even more. He says, pray to the Ashwini Kumaras, the Heavenly Society physicians, and they'll help you. So the disciple prays, following the order of his guru. There's such faith he has in his guru. And then the Ashwini Kumaras come and they say, here's some special cake medicine. You take this and you'll get your sight back. And at this point, he's learned his lessons. He said, I'm not taking anything without my guru's permission. And then they bless him and he gets his sight back and he lives happily ever after. And then the guru gives him permission to get married, because that's how the training is for a brahmachari. Before one could be, in the Vedic system, before one could be a good grahasta, one gets trained up in I guess it's obedience training. Brahmachari Gurukula Eva Sandanta Guru. And actually that's how I was trained up, with serving Prabhupada for a while. Till I rebelled. Anyways, so getting back to the story, okay. Hridaya Chaitanya, Hridayananda. So his guru was really angry with him that he had arranged for this Gorpanima festival. And the guru said, get out of here, I don't want to see you again. But because he was such a great devotee, the deities followed him. The deities just went with him. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And so then his guru, Gauridas Pandit, got ready to open up the altar, for greeting the deities, darshanarti. And there were no deities there. He thought, where are my deities? So he ran, really angry at Lord Chaitanya and at his disciple, and he ran with a stick, And the It's an interesting story. This is an interaction the pure devotees have with their Lord. So he runs and the deities jump into the heart of Hridayananda, who becomes Hridaya Chaitanya. That means Chaitanya is in his heart. So that's the story of Hridaya Chaitanya. So getting back to Syamananda, Syamananda says that Hridaya Chaitanya is my guru. And you see in this particular disciplic succession, there's some anger that's exhibited from time to time. You'll hear about this in a second. So he accepts initiation, initiation from Hridaya Chaitanya, and he's very happy. And he gets the name Dukhi Krishna Das. So that's his original name. So then he's sent to Vrindavan to study with Srila Jiva Goswami. Srila Jiva Goswami is the most erudite scholar of all time. Amazing. If you read some of his commentaries, I have the commentaries of Jiva Goswami on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're amazing. And of course, if you read his elaborate theses, the Tattva Sandarbha, the Krama Sandarbha, the Krishna Sandarbha, the Shat Sandarbhas, they're the most elaborate exposition on Vaishnava philosophy, or any type of philosophy, beginning with what we call epistemology, that anybody has ever written, any religious person has ever written. I mean, if you read Jiva Goswami, you become really proud that you're a member of disciplic succession, that they're his followers. So anyway, so he studies with, that is, Dukhi Krishna studies with Jiva Goswami, and he's given the duty, not only studying, not just scholar, you have to do some menial service. So he's cleaning this kunja, which is called Kanaka Kunj. And what happens is that while he's cleansing the kunj, which Radha and Krishna had pastimes in every night, one night, Radharani, by accident, or purpose, she leaves her nupara, ankle bell, and he discovers it. He discovers it under one of the desire trees, because all the trees in Vrindavan are desire trees. I'll tell you a story about that. Anyway, this is a famous story I've told before, but my own experience. One time I was in Vrindavan with one of my godbrothers. He was about 55 years old, and his wife had left him. And he wanted to get remarried. So I went up to the desire tree, embraced it, and said, please let him not get, he's a little old for this sort of stuff. Said, please let him not get remarried again. Start another family again at 55. I mean, that's kind of late, isn't it? And so I'm embracing the tree, and I said, I was praying for you, I was telling him. And he says, no, Maharaj, don't do that. And he went up to the same tree and held it 10 times tighter. And then a few days after that, he was married, so again. So desire trees work. You got to be careful what you desire. So all the trees are desire trees. So getting back to Gaurinath, to Dukhi Krishna Das. So he found the nupara, and it was glowing. And he tied it on his neck, and then he buried it, and the shovel he used to bury it with turned gold in color when he did that. Wow. So later on, Lalita Devi was sent to retrieve this nupara. And so she was in disguise, obviously. You can't see Lalita Devi or any of these personalities with our mundane vision. So she goes up to Syamananda, and she says, I'm just one of the village girls, my friend basically left her ankle bell. And he told her, you're not just an ordinary village girl. You're Lalita Devi, and it's Radha's. And eventually Lita confesses, actually, you're right. So this way he had an argument with Lalita. And he says, I want to see your actual form. And she says, not possible. And he said, by your mercy, I can see your actual form. And so in a secluded place, she manifests her actual form as Lalita Devi to him. And he fainted, and she put her feet on his head. And he, obviously, this is definitely an ecstatic moment. He's crying, rolling on the ground, and says, I want to be your servant and serve Radha and Krishna eternally. And so Lalita gives him a mantra at this particular point. That anytime he chants it, he can see Radha and Krishna. Wow. And enter into, not only see them, but enter into their pastimes in his spiritual body. So you'll find with many of these great personalities, they were able, in their meditation and their spiritual bodies, to simultaneously, while their external body was here in this world, they were able to enter into Radha and Krishna's pastimes. So then he digs up the ankle bell, and Lalita touches this ankle bell to his forehead, and actually gives him the name Syamananda at that particular time. Says, your name from now on is not Dukhi Krishnadas, it's Syamananda. But don't tell anyone, but you can tell Jiva Goswami. So he cries and he faints, and now his complexion changes. He has a golden complexion, glowing gold. So, everybody can see what's happening. And then he returns to Jiva Goswami, and Jiva Goswami says, where did you get that complexion, And where'd you get that tilak from? And Syamananda tells him, tells him the whole story. And Jiva Goswami asks to see the shovel, the spade it's called. And then Jiva Goswami says, I have become your property. And he told Syamananda to understand that whatever has happened because of the mercy of your guru. You shouldn't think, I'm better than my guru now. My guru is actually a coward boy, and I'm a gopi. These are just material considerations, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one is thinking his guru is looking at the guru through mundane vision. So, anyway, but it became a subject of rumors and talk in Vrindavan, because everyone thought that Jiva Goswami had reinitiated, which is actually a great offense to reinitiate someone who has taken the mantra. Once you've taken the mantra, you've taken the mantra. And so they thought Jiva Goswami, gave him a new name, gave him a different tilak, Jiva Goswami is guilty. So they, how rumors spread. So they conveyed that information to his spiritual master, Hridaya Chaitanya. Hridaya Chaitanya was really angry as anything. So he sent devotees to Vrindavan to find out what had actually happened. And Srila Jiva Goswami defended Syamananda. He said the tilak and the name was given by Hridaya Chaitanya in a dream. And Syamananda said, yes, it was a dream. And so the devotees went back to Bengal, which is where Hridaya Chaitanya was. And Hridaya Chaitanya said, there's no such dreams. I wasn't there in the dream. And sometimes I have that experience too, that people say, Guru Maharaj, you gave me this instruction in a dream. I say one thing to people externally, and they say, well, in the dream you said something different. so I can choose which instruction I want to follow, It's like going to a doctor and say, can I get a different opinion? Yeah. The dream doctor. Anyway, so dreams should not be taken seriously. So then, Hridaya Chaitanya thought, I got to go there myself to correct this rascal. And he inquired from Syamananda. He said, who is your guru? And Syamananda said, you're my guru, and I got this name and tilak by your mercy. Hridaya Chaitanya got angry and said, we're going to wipe off this tilak. I don't care what you think. We're going to wipe off the tilak. And if it remains, then we can understand it's real. So Syamananda got really excited at this particular point, didn't want to lose the tilak given to him by Lalita Devi. So he chants this mantra, the Radha mantra, and in his spiritual body enters into the temple where Srimati Radharani is, and he's actually outside. He begins to cry outside the temple in a spiritual form. It's all, they're just seeing Syamananda with his eyes closed at this point. They don't know what's happening. So he begins to cry in a spiritual body. Spiritually, in a spiritual form, he's known as Kanaka Manjari. So he's crying outside, saying, basically, she says, my husband is beating me. Sometimes Swami means husband, sometimes it means guru, but in this particular case, it meant his spiritual master. It's interesting. Swami means someone who controls, and Goswami is someone who controls the senses. So Lalita Devi is inside making Badal for Srimati Radharani, and she gives the message to Radharani, and then Radharani says, bring Kanaka Manjari inside, Syamananda, same person. And Radha is eating these Badal, and Rupa Manjari, this is the whole scenario, is massaging Srimati Radharani's legs. And Champaka Lata, who's another one of the primary gopis, is fanning Srimati Radharani. So they explain the whole story. And Radha, at this point, it's really interesting. She speaks to Subal, who is the grand spiritual master of Syamananda, because he's the spiritual master of Hridaya Chaitanya. Remember that? And so he's there in his spiritual body. And Subal paints Syamananda on the chest, as well as the tilak on the forehead. And Radha orders him, he said, when you actually are able to rectify the situation with your spiritual master, you should tour Orissa with Rasika Murari and preach Krishna consciousness. So in the meantime, external consciousness, everyone is bewildered. Everyone is completely bewildered. What's happening? His eyes closed. People are crying. Jiva Goswami understands exactly what's happening at this point because he knows the whole story about the Radha mantra and everything. And so basically they try to rub off his name and also his tilak, and it just keeps appearing. So Hridaya Chaitanya is not yet satisfied. Even though he's tested him, he gets angry, which is all right. I mean, sometimes pure devotees get angry when someone violates Vaishnava etiquette because he thinks he's violating Vaishnava etiquette. So he thinks his disciple is not being chased because he's expressing a different bhav, different emotion, like gopi bhav, instead of sakya bhav. Sakya bhav means friendship. So he's thinking, oh my God, he's unchaste. He should be a coward boy like me. But actually, each and every person has their own rasa. You may have a guru who is a gopi or a coward boy or in parental relationship, and you may be in any other relationship. And the guru is able to guide one in one's relationship, even if the guru has a different relationship. So anyway, so he comes back, and his, Hridaya Chaitanya comes back, and Syamananda explains that even Hridaya Chaitanya's spiritual master, Gauridas, is serving Radha and Krishna. So what's wrong with serving Radha and Krishna? He's arguing with his guru. And then Hridaya Chaitanya starts to beat his disciple with a stick. It's a pretty interesting disciple-guru relationship. Nowadays you go to jail for that. That's why I don't do that. So he beats the disciple with a stick. And so, it hurts. It hurts. But then Hridaya Chaitanya later on has a dream. And the next night he has a dream. Lord Chaitanya appears to him, and in that dream, Lord Chaitanya is all bloody. And Hridaya Chaitanya understands, I made a mistake here. Lord Chaitanya is chastising me. And so Lord Chaitanya forgives Hridaya Chaitanya, and he says you should, in compensation for what the offenses you made, you should make 12 festivals. So then later on, we're almost through the story, Srila Jiva Goswami orders Syamananda to go to Bengal on Orissa, and there he meets his great disciple Rasikananda, and they preach together Krishna consciousness. So he's known as the great Orissan saint, and his samadhi is in Ramuna. Anyone been to Ramuna here? No one. You been to Ramuna? Ramuna is where the deity of Shirachora Gopinath is. And there's a samadhi of different saints, but especially Syamananda Samadhi is there, and Rasikananda's Samadhi is there, Ramuna. And Ramuna is just about 5 hours away from Puri or Bhubaneswar. So, I think that's all we have time for today. Just keep it short. I mean, we Balarams Radha Vamsi Vedam and Krishna's Vasant Rasa, Krishna's Spring Rasa. So we're celebrating all those things today, as well as the appearance of Radhakund. Radhakund appeared on the Chaitra Purnima, and sort of today is actually the Pratipat, so it was like in the middle of the night Radhakund appeared. Like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, last night. So we're going to celebrate today during the evening program, the whole program. So anyone have any questions? Yes.
I always wondered, why did Jiva Goswami instructed Syamananda to lie about the initiation, about the dream to Hidaya Chaitanya?
Well, that's an interesting question. You have to ask Jiva Goswami. But he wanted to attribute everything to Hridaya Chaitanya's. Everything to Hridaya Chaitanya's mercy. That was important. The main thing is he wanted to have the etiquette right. And also he wanted to defend himself against the claims of reinitiating someone. So, questions, yeah.
Well, thank you for the nice class. Well, my question is, like you said, the guru always guides the disciple, irrespective of the
Rasa.
similar or different rasa.
Right.
So in this case, if the rasas don't align,
Yeah.
how does the guidance can align?
How does the guidance align? Well, the guru, if he's actually a bona fide guru, is expert in Rasa and Tattva, Rasas and Tattva. So he can guide, and then also he can let the disciple have a Siksha guru in that particular rasa. That's another way. But really, when we're talking about realizing one's rasa, that one begins to realize that in the stage of Raganuga Bhakti. So in the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, if you look at the different stages of progression in devotional service, I mean, there's Sadhana Bhakti, which in Sadhana Bhakti you have Vaidy and Raganuga, and then after that you have Bhava Bhakti, and after that you have Prema Bhakti. So in the beginning stage, there's the Vaidy, which means rules and regulations, just serving according to rules and regulations. In Raganuga, you begin to get a glimpse of what your rasa is in the spiritual world, and you reveal that to your spiritual master, either Siksha or Diksha Guru. And because of their expert in understanding Ras, and understanding Ras, they're able to facilitate your understanding of what your rasa is. It's not that the guru tells you what your rasa is. Of course, you have this process that would is the guru would look at your attraction for different things, and then he would facilitate your understanding of what your rasa was. And then based on that, you would be attracted to a particular service. I mean, this is really elevated stuff. At a particular service of particular individuals in the spiritual world, and you would serve Ragatmaka, they're called Ragatmaka devotees. You're probably familiar with the terminology. And then you would consider yourself a servant of that particular Ragatmaka devotee. That means one whose Atma or self is Rag. So, and you would meditate on that, and the guru can guide you in that. And there's some of the acharyas who say that according to your ras, you see your guru in that ras too. There's actually some acharyas who say that. But in any case, any bona fide guru is capable of guiding their disciple in any of the rasas. Any pure devotee is capable, because they know they know the writings of the Goswamis and the definitions of the rasas and the symptoms of the ras. It's not that difficult. I mean sometimes. It's pretty easy to understand what ras someone is in. Let me give you an example. Like if you got someone who's always saying Nityananda, Nityananda, then they have a specific relationship in Mayapur. So anyway, from the standpoint of the guru, from the guru's standpoint, it's not that difficult to understand and give. And if really there's some details that need to be filled in externally, you can either the guru can refer them to some of the Goswami's literatures, which deal with the different rasas, or to someone who is, let's say, able, I wouldn't say more proficient, but is able to give them other guidance. In the Vaishnava society, it's not that the guru owns the disciple, the Diksha guru owns the disciple. You're all working together, like you find in this story, that Syamananda was sent to Jiva Goswami to get educated. Now, Hridaya Chaitanya was certainly educated, but Jiva Goswami was the most educated personality. So if you're going to train someone up to be a preacher, you send them to, the most proficient philosopher practically of all time, other than Lord Chaitanya. So there's no question of possession like that. It's more of a dynamic between different great personalities, just like we have in ISKCON. In ISKCON, it's everyone is working to serve Srila Prabhupada, and we're actually all brothers and sisters and everything like that, regardless of who our initiating guru is. And I personally don't differentiate. Differentiation of people. If we differentiate, it will cause fracture in our movement. So we have to really just be, we're all one family. Aunts and uncles and cousins and whatever. We should see like that. It's not to have guru groups or guru groupies is actually, I think, very displeasing to Prabhupada, because Prabhupada wants his society to stay together. So that's why, we have these things like the ISKCON Disciple Course, where people are trained up in Prabhupada's position. There's an aspect of the course that's called the Founder Acharya, understanding Prabhupada as the Founder Acharya. I think that's really important to keep us together. So it's more of a dynamic. So I had some disciple who wanted to be a tree in Vrindavan. I probably don't know too much about that. So I would send to someone who knew about trees. Anyway. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
First of all, thank you so much for coming. It's like, in the COVID situation, like we're feeling it's a fresh breath and a fresh rain after drought of no sannyasi and no Maharaj visit. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
My question, Maharaj, actually is from your the lecture. You mentioning about the relationship of a guru and a disciple, where guru actually is chastising the disciple in a heavy way.
Yeah.
Like even beating and like telling him don't drink until I have.
That's not appropriate. Beating's not appropriate. That's not. That was the whole story of Hridaya Chaitanya. It wasn't appropriate for him to beat his disciple.
Like I'm just trying to come to the point where disciple need to be very, very subservient to the guru.
Yeah.
And need to listen to him at all times. But in today's time, talking about myself, the ego is so fragile. Even a little bit of correction, you take it with a lot of heavy heart.
Yeah.
So how to deal with that actually in today's scenario where?
Yeah. So the guru is expert. I mean, the particular exchange between Hridaya Chaitanya and Syamananda was a pastime. Try to understand that's not taken, or should be taken as an example. That that every guru should start beating the disciple, would be heavy with the disciple. I think if one is going to take on the service of guru, one has to be expert in how to deal with specific disciples. And we see that with Prabhupada, that it's interesting, like Prabhupada understood certain people were really soft, you couldn't really chastise them. Like even Prabhupada's servant, Shrutakirti, he didn't really get chastised by Prabhupada. But you take someone like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Prabhupada really chastised him sometimes, and sometimes with sarcasm. There's that whole story. Let me just shift the camera so they can see me again. So there's that whole story that Prabhupada was trying to teach humility, and he said, one time he said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, there's many, many universes. Some of you heard this story before. Krishna's created many, 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 many universes, unlimited universes. And there's one universe, and we're in this one universe.
Yes.
And then in that one universe there's many, 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 many planets, and we're in this one planet, the Earth planet. And in the Earth planet is many, 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 many cities, and we're in the city of Los Angeles. And Los Angeles has many, 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 many streets. And we're in this one street, and in this one street there's many houses, and there's one house here. And in this one house there's someone named Tamal Krishna Maharaj who thinks he's the supreme controller. So Prabhupada was very expert in, I think the people who Prabhupada really knew were actually more fixed, he actually tended to deal with heavier. And they took it as a sign of love. Prabhupada often told the story about the boy whose aunt never chastised him, and then he became a criminal, and then he was condemned to death. And they asked him, "Do you have any final words you want to say to your aunt?" And he said, "Yes, let me say something in her ear." And he actually bit her ear. And they said, "Why'd you do that?" He said, "Because she never chastised me." So I think I'm not advocating heavy chastisement. Everybody's getting scared online. Can I find another guru? That's funny. So I'm not advocating that. It's just the guru knows how to. You have all these heavy stories in the Mahabharata. There's other heavy stories too. In the Mahabharata, actually, the first part of the Mahabharata deals with the guru training his disciples. And one disciple had to lie down in a ditch to make sure the ditch wasn't, no water got out of the ditch. That was another story in the Mahabharata. So, basically, the essence is that one learns, what is that? Brahmachari Guru Kule Vasandanta Gurorhitam. One learns to work for the benefit of the guru. And that's really what keeps you going throughout your whole life. Like Prabhupada talked about Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary on the verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Bhutya Ekeha Kurananda. And Prabhupada connected that with service to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur connected with service to the Guru, one pointed in service to the Guru. And you see, amongst all of Prabhupada's godbrothers, including himself, Prabhupada was the one who was most fixed on the order of the Guru, and therefore he was the most empowered. Sometimes, people say, well, Prabhupada descended from the spiritual world, which is true too, but the real way that we can ascertain, the objective way that we can ascertain and understand Prabhupada's exalted position is by seeing his devotion to his Guru. His guru gave him the instruction, you have to preach in the Western world, preach in English. And he took it most seriously. That's it. So Prabhupada is showing us by example, if you take the Guru's instruction most seriously, you become very empowered. And you can do miracles. In 11 short years, Prabhupada started a worldwide society and fulfilled Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction that in every town and village his name would be heard. That's amazing, isn't it? Simply by Guru Nishta. So Brahmachari, this is an interesting verse, Brahmachari Guru Kule. The Brahmachari, of course nowadays we don't have any Brahmacharis. It's an endangered species or extinct, sorry. Extinct species. So, but Prabhupada said the householders can be household brahmacharis, that means they're dedicated. Because the word brahmachari means dedicated to the spirit, Brahman. So everybody can be a brahmachari in that respect. But it really requires loyalty and dedication. And like we see in the Ramayana, there's so much loyalty and dedication between the brothers, isn't it? And to their father. Like I've often said, a few days ago I said, my father told me to go to the forest. I wouldn't go. I mean, or I would ask for a camper or something like that. There was the funny joke. I asked a devotee in Fiji that, some of you heard this joke before, that I said to him, because he was dedicated to his father, I said, if your father asked you to go for 14 years into the forest, would you go? And he said, yes, but I wouldn't take my wife. So that sort of loyalty in society is there in traditional society. Loyalty to one's family, loyalty to one's guru, and you see that and the guru and Lord Ramchandra, Vashishta, Viswamitra. I mean, so much loyalty and love, and you don't see that so much in modern society anymore. People everyone wants their independence. But independence is right. At the same time, Prabhupada said we don't want blind following. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says it, absurd inquiries. So it's a balance, So that, sometimes the guru will be testing the disciple. Sometimes the guru will want some advice. The disciple asks, "What should I do?" And the guru says, "What do you want to do?" And the disciple said, "No, that's not the answer I wanted. I want to be told what to do." So that's bad too, that sort of situation. Told what to do? Are you a baby? You're 45 years old? What should I eat for dinner, Guru Maharaj? You get disciples like that, and it's really frustrating. Grow up, Prabhu. So, that's why Prabhupada said blind following and absurd inquiries. And Prabhupada said, Prabhupada appreciated intelligence. He said independently thoughtful. He wants people to be independently thoughtful. And that's why I really appreciated Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because he was such a leader. He was dynamic and thoughtful, was able to come up with different strategies. Whenever Prabhupada, there was some difficulty, Prabhupada would always say, call for Tamal. He wouldn't say call for anyone else, basically. He said call for Tamal. Because he understood, Tamal was strong, independent mind, and Prabhupada liked that. But he was loyal to the same. He had all the good qualities, complete, absolute loyalty to Prabhupada, but a strong mind, an independent, thoughtful, and creative mind. So, that's the sort of balance that one needs to have, like Tamal Krishna Maharaj said.
That's right.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, should we take a question online? Oh my God. People asking questions. What you done here? No questions. Yeah, no questions. That's good. No one's asking questions online. Someone just said that she chanted for a fish. Anyway, so get all these messages. She was in a park and a fish died and she chanted for the fish. Okay, that's good. There's people wild on the internet. So anyways, listening to the class, and well, they said the fish was listening to my class because she was listening to my class. So the fish is going to become my disciple in the next life. There's a problem with interactive internet classes. All right. Okay, we should end now. And tonight at the Hall program we'll speak about the appearance of Radha Kund. Jai. All glory is to Shri